Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel. Get the Twinkle fruit ability in database gene system. Chapter 41. Yu Feng couldn't help but smile secretly in his heart. Those two guys just hit the muzzle of Jean, otherwise Qin would have used telepathy to control them to leave, and would not have directly deleted their memories as well. Well, I have to say that Qin this sneezy, it's really a little scary to be unhappy. Yu glanced at the piano with interest, and saw that this Nico glared at him again, with a slight redness on her pretty face, and said with a bulging look. You are not allowed to stare at those demons. Look at that place where the woman looks. Quote. Well, where? Yu Feng looked like he didn't know, scratched his head and said, I didn't look anywhere, can you give me instructions? Quote. Qin glanced at Yu Feng, her little face bulged cutely, she knew that Yu was intentional, so she directly tilted her head and snorted arrogantly and stopped talking. However, he subconsciously raised his little hand and touched his undeveloped chest. Yu Feng glanced at it, but just saw this scene, and his heart suddenly became even happier. Girls don't develop until they're about 10 years old, you're only 8 or 9 years old now, why do you care about this? Wow, suddenly, the lights disappeared. The entire venue became dark, and everyone was quiet at this moment. Look at the stage. They knew that the circus performance, this moment was about to officially begin. The entire circus stage is like the arena of a fighting arena, circular in shape, and the audience stage spares this stage. If you're underground, that's the rhythm of an underground fighting arena. Syllable. Suddenly, a light came on and appeared on the stage, and in this light stood a strange guy in colorful clothes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Munich Circus. This guy looked excited, spoke in an extremely exaggerated tone, and after babbling a lot, the next thing was to start the circus show. The so-called circus is a kind of acrobatic performance. Different from the acrobatic performances that Yu Feng saw in his previous life at the Spring Festival Gala, the biggest features of the circus here are clowns, magic, and the performances of animal trainers. And, of course, those dressed as demons. Violent, loose women. It's interesting that Kotoichi saw those demons. Yan women, when they boarded, glanced over, stared, puffed out their faces, looked like surveillance, and reminded you from time to time. You are not allowed to stare at them. Yu Feng can be regarded as having served this little girl, how can the vinegar strength not disappear until now? But then again, doesn't it mean that there are demons appearing? How come there are already several shows, and the demon has not yet appeared? Or is it some finale trick to play? Yu Feng was not interested in really watching this Munich circus performance, and when he turned his eyes, he said to Qin. Why don't we go backstage at this Munich circus and see what the so-called devil looks like? Oh, Jean watched with relish as a tamer on stage performed. Hearing this, the little head turned around, his eyes lit up, and then he directly pulled Yu Feng's hand, and said with a super excited look. Okay, let's go quickly. Quote, I've long wanted to see what that demon looks like. It's a pity that just in that enchantment, in the woman's mind, there was no demonic information at all. Quote, Jean said, not forgetting to mutter, HMPH, it's a woman with big chest and no brains. Quote, Yu Feng couldn't help but smile again when he listened. Well, you little girl, the vinegar jar is so big, don't people just throw me a flattery? I don't give a flying mouth. I am so handsome and outstanding, it's normal for people to be impatient. Quote, poof. Qin couldn't help but laugh when she heard this, and gave Yu Feng a blank look, don't face. Where are you handsome, where is your temperament outstanding? Quote, oh yes, so why did someone paint so many portraits of me throughout the year, didn't they covet my beauty? Quote, Yu Feng also rolled his eyes. In addition to being a top student, Qin is also an out-and-out literary girl. When I'm fine, I like to sketch and draw. In a year, there was no shortage of painted feathers. When Qin heard this, her face suddenly turned red, and she quickly argued, where is there anything that covets your beauty, HMPH, smelly don't have a face, ignore you. Quote, said and turned his head arrogantly. Haha, this little lollikin's arrogant look is really cute, Yu Feng likes this look of the chin, pinched the red little face, and followed. Okay, don't make trouble, without further ado, let's hurry up and find that demon. Saying that, there was a faint light around him. The next moment, the two had disappeared into their seats. The light here was dim, and the surrounding audience focused on the circus performance, but did not notice that 2 seats were suddenly vacant in the VIP seats. In the blink of an eye, the two had arrived backstage at the Munich circus. Yu Feng took the little hand of the piano and walked gracefully here. Qin Xiao's face looked east and west with a curious look, and was slightly coaxed by Yu Feng. She was tired with Yu Feng again, and at this moment a pair of hands held Yu Feng's entire arm. Strange. Huh, why doesn't it seem like there's anyone in the background? Quote. Yu Feng looked around, also a little strange. The backstage of this circus should logically say that there should be many people preparing for the next show, right? At the moment, it is extremely silent, not to mention people. It seems that there are even fewer props for performance. Suddenly, Qin's small hand holding Yu Feng's arm tightened, and his body froze. Anyone? Looking at Qin, Yu Feng's eyes moved. Jean nodded, her little face slightly condensed. But it doesn't seem to be a circus person. As he spoke, he saw a figure appear around the corner in front of him. This man is clearly not from the circus. Holding an assault rifle in his hand, dressed as a mercenary, his eyes scanned the surroundings sharply at the moment, and when he saw the direction of Yu and Kodo, his brows furrowed. After a slight pause, he found nothing, so he turned and went in the other direction. Seeing the mercenary leave, the middle finger of her index finger was lowered from her temple, and under her telepathic interference, the mercenary could not see them even if his eyes were wide open. However, the appearance of this mercenary aroused Yu Feng and Qin's great curiosity. There are actually mercenaries. What happened inside this Munich circus? Yu Feng looked thoughtful. He originally thought that there would be night stalkers here, but at the moment, it seems that there will be more than just night stalkers. There should be a force infiltrating this Munich circus. It is even quite possible that it was specifically looking for the mutant of the Night Stalker. After all, the Munich circus poster is so big, and the devil is deliberately used as a gimmick, and at the moment this mutant is gradually known to the world min. Sense period, it is easy to think of mutants. And this, naturally, is also easy to attract the attention of those organizations interested in mutants. Yu, what do we do next? Jean's eyes flickered slightly. Looking at Yu, it was obvious that her curiosity had also increased sharply. Go over and take a look. Things seem to be getting interesting, and of course Yu Feng won't miss it. He waved his hand and followed deeper towards the inside of this Munich circus. As he went, Jean followed closely behind him, and soon the two reached the deepest place. The backstage of this Munich circus is not large in the deepest interior. That is, a few living facilities that look like temporary erections, very circus-like, yurt-like. It can be said that there are mercenaries in a circle, and there are some people who know at a glance that they are not easy to mess with suits, and their eyes are as sharp as eagles. At this moment, these people are building a ring of power grid installations around the perimeter. These power grids look like the underground mutant fighting arena. A special electromagnetic field emanated from it, and with the diffusion, the piano's telepathic ability was immediately affected. These electromagnetic fields are specially used to affect the superpowers of mutants. There is almost no solution. We as mutants, if we do not have special equipment, once we get close, we will be immediately discovered. Qin Chao's eyebrows frowned slightly, and looked at Yu Feng on the side. Looking at this, it is estimated that it is sneaking in. If you want to know what is going on inside, you can only make a good fuss, and then delete people's memories. Don't worry, they won't find us. However, the corners of Yu Feng's mouth suddenly turned up and said confidently. It's true that this electromagnetic field can interfere with or even shield mutants, but he's not a mutant. For a year, Yu Feng used various scientific and technological means to test his ability, whether he would be affected by some special electromagnetic waves, electromagnetic fields, and so on. It turned out that it didn't. At most, it will have some effect on the light particles he emits. However, the ability to shield him is simply not possible to do it. Jean, do as we've been training and I'll assimilate you photons. You, on the other hand, exert your telepathic abilities in a state of light particleization, and we walk directly into it. Quote. Yu Kaide said, just walk in, can it work? Quote. Jean looked at Yu Feng with wide eyes. Trust me. Yu Feng smiled slightly, and then directly grabbed Qin's little hand. With a faint flash of light, Jean quickly turned into a complete state of light particles. I believe you. Quote. Taking a deep breath and looking at Yu Feng's confident appearance, Qin nodded. Since Yudu said so, then of course she believed you. As her little face froze, she looked at the group of mercenaries and the man in the suit, and used her telepathic ability as she walked over. Those mercenaries and those guys in suits and shoes, who looked like agents, quickly set up the power grid completely and directly turned on the influence of the electromagnetic field to the maximum. Everything was done quickly and organized. At this time, Yu Feng and Qin had completely reached the influence range of the electromagnetic field. Yu Feng looked like a good swimmer. Jean's small face was slightly nervous. But soon surprised, she found that her telepathic ability was not only not affected by the electromagnetic field at this moment, but seemed to be amplified. In the past, she and Yu Feng had done many photon assimilation trainings, but none of them had such an experience as they are now. It was as if those electromagnetic fields not only did not have a limiting effect on her, but had a wonderful amplification effect on her abilities. Feeling this, Qin was immediately surprised and delighted. So under this strengthening effect, her mind moved, and she completely released her telepathic power. At the moment when this power spread, immediately, those mercenaries and suit agents were beaten one by one, and their whole lives stood still, and their eyes did not move in the slightest. It seems that at this moment time stands still. Seeing this, Yu Feng smiled slightly, glanced at Qin in praise, and followed the two directly to the guarded door. Open, enter. Gee, the conditions inside this circus look good. Quote. Yu Feng looked around. I found that the inside was clean, neat, and decorated with some artworks, decorated in a luxurious style. And in the middle, there are two people. One party was dressed strangely and in colorful costumes, and it was obvious that it was someone inside the Munich circus. On the other side, a man in a gray suit with glasses, and beside him stood four sharp-looking mercenaries. In the middle of the two sides is a strange-looking box, as if it contains something. At the moment, these people are all standing still. Jean glanced at the man in the suit with glasses, blinked, and followed Yu Feng. These people seem to be from a company called Essek. They got news from an intermediary called Caliban that in this Munich circus, they sensed a very powerful mutant atmosphere. This Essek company wants to capture this powerful mutant. Quote. Essek company. News from Caliban. Sensed a very powerful mutant aura in the circus. Quote. Yu Feng was stunned when he heard this, and then his face became a little strange. Essek company. This company is directly related to Marvel, or a classic villain in X-Police. Mr. Fright. In Apocalypse, there is also a scene at the end where an employee of the Essek company comes to Stryker's secret research institute to take away the X-weapon, the blood sample of Wolverine's gene. Mr. Fright is an extremely radical genetics researcher, extremely obsessed with the genetic study of mutants. In the current era when mutants are gradually becoming known to the world, it is not surprising that the Essek company, which is run by Mr. Shock, catches mutants everywhere and collects the genetics of mutants. But what made Yu Feng a little strange was that the people of the Essek company heard that there was a very powerful mutant in the circus over there in Caliban. This shouldn't be referring to the Night Stalker, right? Although the Night Stalker is not bad, it is far from being very powerful. Could it be that what Caliban originally sensed was violin? The people at Essek didn't know the details of the Night Stalker. Perhaps hearing the word demon, and then hearing the news that Caliban has a powerful mutant in the circus, it is natural to think that the devil is the powerful mutant that Caliban said. Thoughts flashed through Yu Feng's mind, and his gaze shifted from the people of the Essek company to the weird box. With the Night Stalker's teleportation ability, any place it can see or go can be teleported. So naturally you have to find a way to trap it. In this box, it is estimated that it should be where the Night Walker is. Jean, open the box. Yu Feng waved his hand. Jean nodded and grabbed it directly with her small hand. Immediately, the strange box levitated. As the idea of the piano containing the power of the phoenix moved, there was an uproar. Immediately, the entire box was directly decomposed into particles like sand, and then floated into the air and disappeared. And then, a strange-looking blue figure appeared in midair. This figure has pointed ears and a devil-like tail, and at first glance it looks like a teenager, and it is the appearance of being all blue, which always makes people feel strange. Jean chuckled and looked over curiously. This is the demon. It looks like a demon. Quote. Yu Feng looked interested. Sure enough, It was a Night Stalker. The current Night Stalker looks more than in the original plot of the movie, a 13 or 14-year-old hippie boy wearing a skinny red jacket. It should be because he stayed in the box for too long, and the Night Walker at this moment still seemed to have not woken up, and even yawned. Feeling the light around him, he opened his eyes slightly, and when he found that the boxes around him were missing, he was first stunned, and then he couldn't help but show joy. But when I found myself suspended in the air at the moment. Wow, what's the situation? Why did I fly? Am I dead? Out of the body? Quote. Oh, amen. I hope God sees my appearance and won't think I'm a demon and won't let me go to heaven. The Night Stalker first let out a cry of wolves, but soon turned into a prayerful appearance, closed his eyes, and looked like he really thought he was dead. Quote, quote. Seeing this, Yu Feng and Qin couldn't help but be speechless for a while. What the hell is this guy? Funny then, you always have to open your eyes and take a good look at the environment around you before you make a conclusion, right? Seeing the Night Stalker's dumbfounded and funny look, Jean couldn't help but hide her laughter. What, you, this demon is not scary at all, but a little cute. Yu Feng glanced at the Night Walker in midair speechlessly, and said lightly. Okay Jean, put away your abilities. He fell and felt the pain and knew that he was not dead. Jean nodded his little head and withdrew his mind control. Without Jean's mind control, the Night Walker immediately felt empty under him, followed by a sharp fall to the ground. This drop is not small, directly startled the Night Stalker, and subconsciously exerted his ability. Bang! Suddenly, the body turned into blue smoke and disappeared. Yu Feng's gaze moved. It seems that there is still some skill, at least in the face of a crisis. The speed of using his own ability is quite fast. He just thought about it in his heart, but he heard the sound of bang, bang, and bang in the air one after another. I saw the figure of the Night Stalker appear in the air for a while, disappear in the air for a while, and each time it appeared, it either hit the wall or hit the ceiling, like a mindless fly. Until eventually the Night Stalker suddenly disappeared completely. However, a scream suddenly sounded outside. Yu Feng and Qin walked out and saw that the whole person of the Night Walker was hanging on the power grid, and the one who was electrified was miserable, and his hair was scorched. In the end, Pong fell to the ground with a bang, looking half dead. Yu Feng looked at the goods expressionlessly. Well, when he didn't say what he just said. The more Qin looked at this guy, the more interesting he felt, and said to Yu Feng, "You, that Essek company, my demon is a very powerful mutant, I see how dumbfounded." Quote. Saying that, he stepped forward directly and poked the head of the Night Stalker. Now the Night Stalker finally reacted. He looked up at Qin, and Yu Feng, blinked his eyes, and said stunnedly, "You, are you angels who have come to redeem me?" Quote. Ha. Qin was happy again when she heard this, and then said telepathically, "We are indeed here to redeem you, but we are not angels, we are your kind, we are mutants." Quote. Mutants. Although the Night Stalker was a little stunned, he was not stupid, especially Jean also used telepathy to present things directly in his mind, and immediately reacted. "Thank you for saving me." The Night Stalker thanked him with a very serious look. Although Yu Feng and Qin looked like children of 8 or 9 years old, much younger than him, the Night Stalker's tone was full of respect. Can it not be respected? Looking at the people around him who stood still like statues, the Night Walker couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of spit in his heart. He knew that these two children seemed harmless to humans and animals, but in fact they should be difficult to mess with. "It's okay, we are all mutants, you should save you." Qin waved his little hand arrogantly, and then looked at Yu Feng and said, "You, what are we going to do next?" Quote. "Let's go next," Yu Kaide said. "The mercenaries and members of the surrounding Essek company, that is, the kind that specialize in hard work, have no access to the core of the company." The man in the suit with glasses seemed to have a higher status. However, Qin glanced at what was in the guy's mind, and also found no other details about the Essek company, so Yu Feng did not intend to waste time here and left directly. Essek, since mutants are caught everywhere and genetics are frantically studied, perhaps there will be mysterious substances in this company. Quote. Yu Feng secretly said in his heart. You know, things like gene serum can also become mysterious substances. Although the probability is not high. But a whole huge ESSEK company should have some clues. It's a pity that except for the information that came to the circus to capture the very powerful mutant, there was nothing else. Even the exact address of the ESIC company is not available. There is only random location information for some trading mutants and the address of a leather bag company with a false appearance. These people should be purely some mutant hunters who have cooperated with the ESIC company, and they are not of much use to Yufeng. Well, let's go then. Jean nodded and beckoned to the Night Stalker. By the way, Walker, where are you going to go in the future? Quote. To be precise, my name is Night Stalker, and my real name is Kurt Wagner. The Night Stalker corrected, then scratched his head, looking embarrassed. As for where I want to go in the future, I don't know where I can go. I've been in this circus since I was very young, and I don't know what is out there. Quote. That's how it is, Chin said, then you might as well follow us. Quote. Okay. The Night Stalker's eyes immediately lit up and he nodded gladly. He originally wanted to follow Yufeng and Chin, but he was afraid of being rejected, and he was hesitating. At this moment, since Chin took the initiative to mention it, of course he agreed with a full amount. Yufeng didn't care about it. Anyway, the journey around the world is almost complete, and it's time to go back to school. It is also good to take the Night Stalker back to the mutant school and add a member in advance for the ex-police, which is bound to be formed in the future. Soon Yufeng, Jean, and Night Stalker left the group. And just after their figures disappeared, the stationary ESIC Duke and the circus members returned to normal. It's just that some of those who are pouring water may feel surprised. Because I don't know when the water has been poured, and the water is still spilled all over the ground, but I don't even know it. Good, you will be glad of your choice. Here is the money you want, and this, devil, we just, well. Quote. The ESIC employee had a smile on his lips. He said as he glanced at the box in front of him. And then dumbfounded, what about the box? What about that demon? Quote. We don't know. Hurry up and find that box, that devil, or all of you people in the Munich circus will die. Quote. Berlin's night markets always exude an exciting and inexplicable luxury. Under the neon light, a dark corner, from time to time, people will be seen coming in and out. Someone was there to kiss selflessly. There are people who sell drugs and fight. There are also homeless people huddled in corners, night owl-like eyes shining, looking at those who sell drugs and kiss fiercely, and from time to time they will show a lewd and neurotic laugh. At this time one peddles high heels, wearing smooth stockings. The blonde came over. Although she wears high heels, she walks with the sound of the wind, and she looks like she is thunderous. Behind her, there was also a young man who looked a little evasive and seemed to be very panicked. Hee, hey, look, where did the little wildcat come from? A drunk man with a wine bottle, staggering and seeing the oncoming person. The woman with great feelings, immediately grinned, showing yellowed ugly teeth, lewd. Laughed. But when I saw that woman coming, a swift elbow strike burst out. Syllable. This drunk man's jaw was crooked, his eyes were protruding, and the next moment he was very simply pounced on the street. This scene made some people who wanted to approach around suddenly pause, and cold sweat could not help but break out on their backs, and then they retreated very consciously. Come in. The woman kept walking. Until he reached the end of the corner, he skillfully opened an iron door and signaled the young man. Oh. The young man nodded, swallowed a mouthful of spit, and followed the woman into the door. The world behind the door seems to be a different world. The air is filled with quiet and pleasant music. Some people sit quietly and drink. Some people are whispering something. Others lined up in front of a camera, and with the click of a white light, someone would open the film and take out the photograph, make it into something like a pass, and pay the person who took the picture with one hand and deliver it with the other. Caliban is glad to see you again, although the you in front of you are not the real you, demon, form, and woman. As the woman came in, suddenly a voice sounded from the counter not far away. The man turned around. His face is pale, his eye sockets are deeply sunken, there is not a single hair on his head, and the whole person looks ugly and strange, but his eyes shine with a sharp and deep light. He looked at the woman with a smile. I wonder what's going on today. Old rule. Make a pass for this kid. The witch said lightly and threw out a roll of money directly. Oh yes, I don't know what this gentleman's name is. When Caliban saw the money, he smiled slightly, directly raised his hand to quickly take it away, and then turned around and was about to prepare the materials for the production of the pass. But at this moment, his nose moved. Then frowned and looked at the door. The witch looked expressionless, but when she saw Caliban's appearance, she was immediately puzzled. Then he also looked towards the door. And this look, her eyes immediately lit up, and she subconsciously blurted out, "Little brother. Brother, is that you?" Quote, Yu Feng's face was expressionless and grim, and as the door opened, he could see a few guys lying behind him who had already pounced on the street. Jean and Night Stalker followed him, looking around with a curious look. Coming here, of course, Yu Feng came to meet the legendary Caliban. But before he could see what the scene was in front of him, a voice that was very familiar to him suddenly sounded. "Little brother. Brother, is that you?" Quote, Yu Feng looked at it slightly strangely. Just see addressing. The blonde woman was looking at him with a look of surprise. Then he opened his eyes wide and the corners of his mouth twitched. It wouldn't be such a coincidence, would it? The witch looked happy. Originally there was no news of Yu Feng for a year, and she was still a little disappointed. But now seeing Yu Feng, and still on Caliban's side, could it be that this little guy suddenly remembered to find himself? Thinking of this, the witch's heart suddenly became even more happy, and her face was full of smiles. Caliban looked confused behind him. After so many years, where had he seen the witch look so happy? He couldn't help but startle him. Jean and Night Stalker looked puzzled. Especially Jean saw that the other party was actually so. Since, the little face subconsciously became unhappy, and immediately looked at Yu Feng. Who is this woman, do you know? Yu Feng opened his mouth, and couldn't help but smile a little bitterly in his heart. What should he say? The witch took him as a little brother. From time to time, he will make some intimate moves, and everything he says is estimated to be in vain. Chin, this little vinegar jar, that is to say turn over. So your name is, Yu. At this moment, the witch girl had already walked over, and she said with a smile, "Why haven't you contacted me for this year, and suddenly you want to come to me today? Or did you think about it for a year and finally decided to follow my sister and me?" Quote. When Yu Feng heard this, he slapped his forehead. Well, it's really going to be a whole section from the beginning. Sure enough, hearing the witch's words, Qin Xiao's face suddenly became completely unhappy. Her small eyes swept the witch, faintly with some murderous aura, and telepathically entered the witch's memory without the slightest hesitation, and then her little face suddenly froze. Yu Feng blinked his eyes in surprise and looked at the quiet Qin on the side. What happened to this little loli? So quiet, stop turning over the vinegar jar. But seeing that at this time, Qin's big eyes suddenly lit up, which was a kind of excited light like a fan seeing an idol, so he listened to Qin excitedly said. You are her. Witch, that hero of our mutants in Washington. Quote. Quote, quote. When the Night Walker heard this, he was first stunned, and then his eyes also lit up when he looked at the witch. The witch frowned slightly, looking at the light of worship in Qin's eyes in front of her, both a little surprised and a little helpless. Yu Feng was confused. What the heck? This painting style seems to be a little different from what he imagined. Wait a minute. Heroes of the Washington event. Yu Feng remembered. The witch and Magneto are known to the world because of the Washington incident in 1973. Magneto is of course wanted by the world, and the witch is regarded as a hero by mutants around the world. When it comes to witches, almost all mutant children who have seen TV reports will have adoring lights in their eyes. Jean so is the Night Stalker. This is especially true of the Storm Woman in Egypt. Thinking of this, Yu Feng couldn't help but be relieved. It seems that Qin just used telepathy to enter the witch's memory, so as to know the identity of the witch, then she doesn't have to worry about this little loli turning over the vinegar jar. This beautiful little sister, I'm not a hero, I can't afford it. The witch looked at the Qin, touched the little head of the Qin, and smiled gently. My name is Ruiwen, if you don't mind, you can call me Sister Ruiwen. Quote. Well, okay, Sister Ruiwen. Jean nodded obediently. My name is Jean Grey. Quote. Well, can I also call you Sister Ruiwen? The Night Stalker on the side said weakly. Of course. The witch laughed. At this moment, she is a gentle and kind big sister next door, where there is the fierce and domineering appearance of the witch. The Caliban in the back seemed to have his eyes falling. Aha! However, although surprised by the gentle appearance of the witch, Caliban quickly calmed down. While taking the photo that the young man had just taken with him, he coughed dryly. Caliban has already prepared the pass, witch, and Caliban also wants to remind you that those 3 children can cause trouble, you need to be careful. Quote, got into trouble with the wrong thing. The witch looked at Caliban suspiciously. After a pause, he immediately took out a roll of money from his body again and threw it in front of Caliban. What happened? Quote, Caliban smiled. Caliban likes you very much, witch, so this message Caliban tells you for free. Not long ago, someone asked Caliban where there were powerful mutants, so Caliban told them that there was a powerful mutant in the circus. And it's not unfortunate that one of those 3 children is a mutant that Caliban thinks is very powerful, and they must have just come from the circus. Caliban said. Suddenly his expression moved. It seems that many people have come here, including many powerful brainwashed mutant puppets. It is estimated that they have come to Caliban to do business again. Quote, witch, if you still want to stay here in Caliban with those 3 cute children, Caliban may have to collect your belongings damaged and wasted, and fighting here in Caliban is not something that Caliban likes. When the witch heard this, her face became solemn. He looked at the 3 of Yufeng, especially at Yufeng, and seemed to be a little hesitant, but quickly said, let's go quickly. Wait. But at this moment, Yufeng's faint voice sounded. He looked at the witch, and a smile curled at the corner of his mouth. I'm here today, but I have to do something. How can I just leave like this? Since someone is coming, let them come. Quote, Yufeng's words were relaxed and indifferent, not at all like words that could come out of the mouth of an 8 or 9-year-old child. Some people on the Caliban side couldn't help but glance at Yufeng in surprise. This little ghost, what a big breath. Especially Caliban. In his induction, he couldn't sense that Yufeng was a mutant at all. Aren't mutants still so arrogant and looking for death? Strangely, the witch was not much surprised when she heard this, but just glanced at Yufeng helplessly and said, are you really ready to stay? You know, those brainwashed mutant puppets, I have met several, all of them are very powerful. In other words, who the hell are you provoking? Quote, ESIC Corporation. Yufeng said concisely and to the point. You don't have to think about it to know that it must be the ESIC company. Suddenly discovering that their prey has disappeared, they will definitely have to be anxious, and it is very likely that they will run to Caliban again to buy information. Originally, Yufeng had no interest in those people. Just like a person looking at a group of ants, he didn't bother to take another look. But listen to the guy in Caliban and there are some brainwashed mutant puppets. Things seem to be interesting. It seems that it has also attracted some high-ranking people in the ESIC company, so he can get more information about the ESIC company. ESIC Corporation. The witch was slightly stunned, and didn't seem to know much what kind of force this was. Subconsciously looked at Caliban. Ahem. Caliban coughed dryly, but looked like an old god was there, and did not say another word. He was just quite surprised, and glanced at Yufeng with curiosity. He is very familiar with witches, alone, and fierce and cunning. However, looking at the appearance of the witch just now, it seems that she actually listened to this 8 or 9-year-old child called, you. This made Caliban a little incomprehensible. When the witch saw Caliban like this, she knew that this goods could not see the money, and would not tell her any more information for free. But she didn't care too much about what the hell the ESIC company was. Since this company had brainwashed mutant puppets, it proved not too easy to mess with. Nowadays, all the forces that have brainwashed mutant puppets as weapons are mysterious and difficult to mess with. Although the Trisk industry has fallen, more persecution and the use of mutants as weapons still lurk in secret. The witch knows this better than anyone. She glanced at Yufeng again, seriously. Are you really thinking about preparing to stay? You may not be fine, but Jean, and this little walker, they are different from you after all. Quote, don't worry, those people dare to touch the 2 of them, then they will definitely be very sorry for this. Yufeng smiled and smiled. As for Jean, there wasn't even the slightest wave on her little face. Just blinking his eyes curiously at the strange look of Caliban, seeing that Caliban couldn't help but feel a little hairy in his heart. He always felt that he was seen through so much that he didn't even have leggings left. Well, actually, to be precise, my name is Night Stalker, and my real name is Kurt Wagner. The Night Stalker corrected on the sidelines. The witch couldn't help but smile bitterly in her heart. These 3 children, provoking a secret powerful force that specializes in capturing mutants, actually looked so indifferent. That's it. After all, she had seen the power of the Flash in the underground mutant fighting arena. But what about the other 2 children? Although the feather is powerful, it is absolutely impossible for the other party to be just a few people. Ponto. Suddenly, at this moment, the iron gate on the Caliban side was opened again. A dozen mercenaries armed with assault rifles rushed in, and at the same time a guy with shiny hair and a lot of Han looks like a Han walked in wearing a wind-pulling agent trench coat. And beside him, there were several people dressed as the same agent. One by one, their eyes were lazy, but between the eyes raised, there was a murderous glow. This kind of fierceness is not comparable to those superficial bluffing mercenaries. These are the murderous aura of guys who have at least hundreds of lives in their hands. Yu Feng raised his gaze and looked at these people. I saw that the male employee in the glasses suit of the Essek company, who was originally in the circus, was nodding and following behind the obviously extraordinary agents, and flattered at the agent with shiny hair and looked like a Han man. Agent Zero, this is it. Agent Zero. Yu Feng's heart moved. He looked at this guy and seemed a little familiar. Now I suddenly understood. Agent Zero, also known as Agent Zero, was a member of the Stryker X-Maker squad before Reverse the Future and has been working for Stryker. But now, after reversing the future, did this guy turn to work for Essek? Agent Zero, special mutants that are difficult to track, free mutant hunters, master a mutant hunter squad, served by multiple companies. Business. Quote. Caliban looked at Special Agent Zero and said with a smile, I wonder what Special Agent Zero wants to do when he came to Caliban with such a loud voice. As a friendly reminder, as long as Agent Zero has enough money, Caliban can provide you with anything you want. Quote. Agent Zero glanced at Caliban with interest. The corner of his mouth hooked a sneer. Swish. Suddenly, a gun appeared ghostly in his hand and pointed at Caliban and said, I heard that Caliban likes money very much, but I don't know if Caliban likes this or not. Quote. I don't know if Caliban likes this or not, but I think you might like it. However, at this moment, suddenly a gloomy woman's voice sounded. Immediately following the neck of Agent Zero, a Senhan blade appeared extremely strangely. The secret agent's pupils shrank. The others' gazes also sharpened. Looking over, I saw that behind Agent Zero, I don't know when a woman dressed as a ninja appeared very strangely, looking cold. Yan, with a murderous light in his eyes. The mercenaries of the Essek company immediately pointed their guns at the female ninja one by one, while several other agents next to Agent Zero showed murderous intent in their eyes. In an instant, the atmosphere immediately reached the level of saber rattling. On the side, the 4 people of Yu Feng, Qin, Night Stalker, and Witch looked at this scene as if they were watching a play. Yu Feng couldn't help but feel a little happy. I didn't expect that this Essek company actually got into trouble with the people of Caliban first. However, according to what Caliban just said, this Agent Zero actually became a mutant. Or a free mutant hunter. He even led a team of mutant hunters to serve various companies. Business. This made Yu Feng feel a little surprised. Because before the reversal of the future, Agent Zero was also a sharpshooter, proficient in various fighting techniques, computers, and explosive and other agent skills. I didn't expect that after reversing the future, I actually directly became a mutant. And also a mutant hunter who specializes in catching mutants. Of course, although he became a mutant, this agent's arrogance has not changed in the slightest, otherwise he would not have pointed a gun directly at Caliban as soon as he came up. And as for the female ninja who appeared ghostly, Yu Feng's eyes flashed. There is no doubt that this female ninja should be the spirit butterfly who follows Caliban around. He hadn't noticed where this spirit butterfly was before. I didn't expect it to appear very abruptly. It is worthy of being a female ninja, and the means of concealment and lurking are powerful enough. Seeing more than a dozen black muzzles pointed at him, Ling Dai smiled contemptuously, and the blade in his hand suddenly got closer to Agent Zero's neck. Well, Ling Di, you are a guest from afar. Caliban likes to make money, but does not like to fight. After all, fighting can damage a lot of valuable things. Just then, Caliban said with a smile, and he looked at Agent Zero. Agent Zero, as Caliban just said, Caliban likes money. As long as you give Caliban enough money, you can buy something with enough value. Quote, by the way, I would like to remind you that in 5 minutes, Caliban will close for work. And then, Mr. Zero, you may have to spend twice as much money to buy things from Caliban. Listening to Caliban's yin and yang voice, the corner of Agent Zero's eyes twitched. But soon he looked calm. Looking at the mercenaries, as well as the other agents with murderous eyes, he gestured. Seeing this, these people immediately put away their guns. The spirit butterfly also lowered the sword blade in his hand. Then he slowly walked to an empty seat and sat gracefully there. However, when passing by Yufeng, he couldn't help but glance at Yufeng more. Yufeng also looked at the spirit butterfly. The eyes of the two met slightly at this moment. Feather Maple is purely a classic of the spirit butterfly which was so popular in Marvel. The mutant female ninja was curious, so she couldn't help but take a look at it more. But when Ling Dai looked at him, she looked at him and directly expressed her interest in him. It seems to say, little brother, my sister noticed you. This made Yufeng couldn't help but be slightly stunned. I'm being picked again. Funny, wrong, why did I say, again? The drama on the side of Agent Zero and Caliban continues. Although Agent Zero is a little naturally rebellious and arrogant, he is currently hired to do things, and naturally he is too lazy to calculate with Caliban anymore. Wave your hand directly. Suddenly, one of his subordinates came over with money. Gee, Caliban weighed the wad of money in his hand, and smashed his mouth with a happy look. I wonder what Agent Zero wants to buy. Quote, regarding the purchase, this employee will tell you that I am only responsible for arresting. Agent Zero said lightly, looking at the ESSEK employee on the other side. The employee immediately stepped forward and coughed dryly. Mr. Caliban, I would like to know about the trail of that mutant, demon, in the circus. That mutant slipped right under my nose, and I suspect there must be other mutants ghosting. But they shouldn't be far, and I want to track them down as soon as possible. Quote, oh, you want to track down them? Caliban nodded, his voice dragged on, since it's them, then Caliban has to charge you more money, that's okay, right? Quote, well, no opinion. The employee frowned, clearly feeling a little upset. However, Caliban is such a product who likes to make money by exploiting all kinds of loopholes, so he endured it and let people take another wad of money. Gee, Essek is really rich. Caliban ordered some money and smiled even more happily, but suddenly said with a straight face, however, if you want to track a person, you have to charge an extra money. Caliban didn't say, they, just 2 people, right? Quote, the ESSEK employee was stunned when he heard this. More than 2 people, good. Caliban showed his trademark smile and said, Caliban likes you, so Caliban will tell you a message for free. In fact, there are 4 of them. Obviously, if you want to track down 4 people, this amount of money is not enough. Quote, the employee's face suddenly fell. But Caliban told him for free that there were 4 people. 4 people, that's 4 mutants, after all captured. He got not only money from the Essek company, but also the status he had always dreamed of. Truly enter the inside of that company. Thinking of this, the employee gritted his teeth and nodded. Good. Immediately, 2 more wads of money entered Caliban's hands. Oh, Mr. Employee, Mr. Special Agent Zero, I have to say, you guys are really generous. Caliban smiled happily, but suddenly, he narrowed his eyes again and shook his head. But it's still a pity, Caliban has just said that in 5 minutes, it will be closed after work. And after work and closing time, buying things is doubled. Quote. Saying that, Caliban pointed to the clock hanging on the wall. It's a coincidence, it's time to close and leave work, so. Caliban, don't go too far. Quote. The employee of the Essek company suddenly couldn't help it at this moment, and let out a low roar. Agent Zero is also extremely unkind in his eyes. This guy in Caliban is obviously trying to make things difficult for them. Who do you say is too much? Suddenly, the voice of the spirit butterfly sounded again, cold. Yanzhong stood up with a murderous aura. The atmosphere became tense again in an instant. When Yu Feng, Qin, Night Stalker, and Witch saw this scene, their faces were strange and funny. Jean hides small. The mouth almost burst out laughing. The Night Stalker was smiling, looking like he was holding back his internal injuries. Even the Witch, looking at Caliban at this moment, for the first time can't help but praise Caliban's kind of calculating about money. Once you want to pit people, it is to pit dead people's unworthy character. Yu Feng originally did not have a deep image of the person of Caliban. But right now, he really saw a profiteer pit the dead and not pay for his life. It was clear that the four of them were in front of the employees of the Essek Company and Agent Zero, but Caliban could actually pit a large amount of money like this. Agent Zero had already touched his gun with both hands at this time. And several obviously unusual agents around him also each held their own weapons. The mercenaries had to take a slower beat, but quickly raised their guns one by one. Ling Dai looked at these people. The sword blade in his hand faintly revealed the light of Sen Han, and at the same time, there seemed to be a purple energy light escaping from the other hand. This guy in Caliban is a chicken thief, although he has a smile on his face, but his hand is already extended. Towards the drawer under the counter, there was a large caliber bullet pistol. The atmosphere of saber rattling suddenly pervaded, almost immediately. But at this moment, the employee of the Essek Company took a few deep breaths, then stared at Caliban deadly, and said in a low voice, "Well, double the price is double the price. I hope Caliban will not have any excuses to increase money in the future." Saying that, 4 wads of thick money were taken out one after another. Of course, when Caliban saw this, his eyes immediately lit up, and he couldn't close his mouth with a smile. His hand quickly reached for the money. Go. However, at this moment, the whole world seemed to stand still. Or more precisely, the speed at which the whole world moves is no different from time standing still in this instant. Jean stopped, the Witch froze, the Night Stalker stopped, Agent Zero stopped, Spirit Butterfly stopped, Caliban stopped, then the employees of the Essek Company and everyone around them were all still. Click. Yu Feng did not stand still. He twisted his neck, got up from his seat, and stretched comfortably. Following, looking with interest at almost everyone who was still in his eyes at this moment. Good. Next, it's time for my lightspeed show. Quote. With the golden light flickering around him, he stepped forward. Of course, Yu Feng would not watch Caliban tell the people of the Essek Company that the person they were looking for was them, right here. Strictly speaking, neither Caliban nor Essek Corporation nor Secret Service Zero is a good thing. Therefore, what Yu Feng was more willing to see was the fight between the two sides. And since you want the two sides to fight, at this moment, of course, you can't let the deal be completed. The corner of Yu Feng's mouth revealed a trace of evil qi in one step, and in an instant, he had already reached the side of that special Agent Zero. Seeing that Agent Zero's hand was extremely close to the two around his waist, he was close to holding 2 guns in his hand, and then in 0.01 seconds he could shoot anyone he wanted to kill. Of course, this is what Agent Zero himself thinks. Now when Yu Feng saw Agent Zero to his own 2 guns, he immediately smiled wickedly, and then took out the 2 guns located on Agent Zero's waist directly. And then it's all in the air. The 2 guns were given an acceleration, which allowed the 2 guns to fly accurately to Agent Zero's face. After thinking about it, at the same time, he changed the direction of Special Agent Zero's right hand, and directly let his right hand grab it towards his egg. Gee, if you catch it at this moment, I don't know if this Secret Agent Zero's egg will be safe and sound. Yu Feng thought rather maliciously. Following the movement of the figure, he appeared next to Caliban again. Calibana is greedy when he sees money. The look of greed and excitement was fully displayed in front of Yu Feng. Seeing this, Yu Feng suddenly despised the rich slave of Caliban for a moment. Then unceremoniously took all the money of Caliban and put it in a leather bag and carried it on himself. He also took Caliban's gun and replaced it with a fresh piece of that he had just shoveled back from the outside with his nose pinched. After doing this, he nodded with a satisfied look. Then he went to the Essek employee, broke his whole person into a fist and attacked, and then put his fist on the carabin's greedy sheet. Greedy and excited face. Very good, very good. Looking at his masterpiece, Yu Feng was both amazed and satisfied, but suddenly seemed to remember something, and patted his head. By the way, I almost forgot, and the Spirit Butterfly. Quote. Yu Feng instantly came to Ling Dai's side. Seeing that the purple Nian power light blade in Ling Dai's hand was slowly growing at a speed visible to the naked eye, even in his light speed movement, Yu Feng was immediately slightly surprised. Interesting, the generation speed of this mental weapon of the spirit butterfly is actually so fast. In the eyes of others, it is estimated that this mental weapon is generated in the blink of an eye, right? Thinking about it, the corners of Yu Feng's mouth suddenly turned up. Directly picked up Ling Di's body and put her among those mercenaries, as well as several agents under Agent Zero. Pull out the sword blade in Ling Di's hand directly, making a trend of swinging around. At the same time, he aimed the purple Nian power light blade weapon that Ling Dai's purple power light blade weapon was about to generate at several agents in the squad of Agent Zero. Finally, after placing the positions of those mercenaries and agents, Yu Feng clapped his hands. Good. Succeed with flying colors. Now it's time to watch the play. Quote. Yu Feng was happy in his heart as he returned to his seat and lifted the state of moving at the speed of light. Then, the whole world's time operation returned to normal again in his eyes. And at this moment, boom, whoops, poof, poof, quote, several strange noises came into my ears one after another. Jean, Nightstalker, and the witch watched as Caliban took over the money from the Essek employee. However, at this moment, the style of painting in front of them changed, and with those few strange sounds, they all opened their eyes wide, and then their faces became strange. The atmosphere of the original scene was still tense and full of tension, and everyone tensed their nerves. Suddenly, however, the picture changed. Caliban screamed, because the Essek employee's fist had somehow run to his face, and he punched him fiercely. Ponto. This punch instantly knocked Caliban into a daze. His eyes widened, a little incredulous, but soon anger appeared in his eyes, grabbed the gun in the drawer, and then aimed it at the face of the Essek employee, forehead. Caliban looked confused again, because the gun he had expected did not appear in his hand, instead, a lump of. And as soon as he grabbed it, his hands were immediately filled with a sticky disgusting feeling, coupled with the irritating stench, and immediately Caliban froze in place. What is the situation? Even more tragic, however, are the Ethiopian employees. At most, Caliban felt a little disgusted within his hand, but he pointed at the Essek company employee for a moment, and as the other party's body leaned forward uncontrollably, the employee's face immediately kissed this piece of close contact. The Essek employee was completely stunned. Caliban actually smeared on his face. At this moment, he didn't care why he suddenly hit Caliban in the face, wiped his face, and even some sour feeling that entered his mouth, which immediately made his whole person completely furious. Caliban, Ponto. Then another punch landed Ka's face. Agent Zero heard that there was an emergency, and he subconsciously grabbed the two guns on his waist. However, as soon as he grabbed this, his complexion became wonderful, his eyes widened, and his face revealed an extremely painful twisted feeling, because, he grabbed this fiercely, but I don't know that it was not towards the waist he expected, but his crotch. Poof, woo, Agent Zero's whole person was suddenly not good. However, this is just the beginning. At this moment, two guns appeared in front of me at some point, and as it turned black in front of them, the two guns immediately collided extremely powerfully. Puffy 2. Agent Zero's head was stunned, and his body was weak, and he was actually directly knocked out. If Caliban and Agent Zero are here to be funny, then Ling Di's side is a bloody killing. Kill. With a flash of air, blood splashed one after another, and when the sword blade in Ling Di's hand swept over, immediately the necks of those mercenaries seemed to be sent up on their own initiative, and a bloody wound appeared one after another. Then in the eyes of disbelief, all fell to the ground and died. And the agents under the hands of those special agents were accompanied by the purple mental power light blade of the spirit butterfly, and let out a series of screams. Because several of them actually stood in a row one by one, clinging to each other. As the spirit butterfly's mental power light blade emerged, it was like a string of sugar gourds connecting these people, not to mention how exciting and wonderful the scene was. Ling Dai's eyes widened, looking incredulously at the few people who had all died under her blow and were also strung together by her mental weapon. What's going on? Why did she suddenly run over here, and then inexplicably killed several people? All this is slow, but it happens in an instant. Seeing this suddenly extremely weird, strange, and bloody picture. Jean, Night Stalker, and the witch were all stunned, and their faces were as strange as they weird. Jean quickly realized something. She turned her little head to look at Yufeng on the side. Seeing Yufeng's light and breezy appearance at this moment, he also looked towards her, and the corner of his mouth showed an ambiguous smile. Qin immediately glanced at Yufeng, but soon burst into laughter, and the voice of telepathy sounded in Yufeng's mind. You're so bad. Agent Zero got up from the ground, and seeing that Ling Di had actually started to kill, he didn't hesitate at all, directly picked up the two guns on the ground, and then shot towards Ling Di. The blazing bullet shot wildly in the blink of an eye with the firelight, the cold light in the spirit butterfly's eyes flashed, the body moved, and immediately the purple Nian power light blade in his hand softened down, turning into a purple long whip, rolling up the penetrating agents and using them as human flesh shields in front of him. Poof, poof, the bullet suddenly entered the body of the first agent. However, the agent did not have any pain from the bullet shot, and his face did not change at all. In fact, even if Ling Butterfly used the mental power light blade to penetrate his body, his eyes did not blink at all, and he directly snorted coldly and picked up an extremely sharp tactical short blade and rushed towards Ling Butterfly. Is it a special mutant puppet without pain perception? Quote. Seeing this, Ling Di's eyes flashed. And just when the painless perceptual mutant puppet agent who seemed to be extremely powerful launched a fierce attack, several other agents under Agent Zero also suddenly became difficult. These people are all brainwashed mutant puppets, and their physical fitness is strong. Although they are penetrated by the mental power weapon of the spirit butterfly, they are not dead, and some even have not weak self-healing recovery ability. Some of their arms lengthened and grabbed the spirit butterfly. Some of their bodies burst out of their bodies and crashed into the spirit butterfly. Some of them had strange markings on their faces, and as the markings rotated for a while, Ling Butterfly suddenly felt a little dizzy in his head. Seeing this, Ling Dai took a step back without the slightest hesitation, and at the same time retreated with the purple light, putting away the Nian power weapon. Agent Zero no longer attacked the spirit butterfly at this moment. Although Ling Dai is an extremely not weak mutant and very strong, he may not be able to please several of his subordinates alone. Agent Zero is mainly concerned about the Caliban side. His immediate mission is to capture the mutants they need for the ESIC company. Caliban has the ability to track mutants, and has an extremely extensive network of relationships, which is essential to achieve his goals. It's just that the two sides did not tear their faces before, and they acted according to the rules and peace. But now that his face has been completely torn, he can only use coercion to let this guy in Caliban entertain honestly. And as for what to do with this mess later, he doesn't care. It's all to be blamed on the mysterious force that has been hidden behind the scenes of the ESIC company. What's more, controlling Caliban is equivalent to controlling the spirit butterfly, and the spirit butterfly is the person on the Caliban side. Thinking about it, Agent Zero came directly to Caliban, raised the gun in his hand and pointed it at Caliban's head, and said coldly, "Caliban, since you guys started first, don't blame me for being unkind. Make your female ninja stop, and, you have to come with us next, understand?" Saying that the secret Agent Zero finger has been pressed on the trigger, he looks like he is ready at any time. Caliban had a very ugly face. His face was blue and purple, and he was very depressed, and the devil knew why he had suddenly fought with the employees of the ESIC company for no apparent reason just now, and he knew that he should be collecting money. Right, speaking of money, what about the money he got just now? Why does it seem to have disappeared? Although his heart was extremely confused and angry, Caliban still held back his anger and looked at Ling Di. "Ling Di, stop." Quote. When Ling Di heard this, he was still confronting those mutant puppet agent guys, and now his eyes flashed, and he put away his offensive. Those few people immediately surrounded the spirit butterfly to prevent this chick from suddenly making a move again. The employee of the ESIC company was extremely angry at the moment, angry to the extreme, full of anger. He is a person with great cleanliness, but at the moment that has been smeared by Caliban has been smeared, and the whole person's face is distorted all the time. He looked around coldly. The customers who were originally on the Caliban side around saw Ling Butterfly killing people, and they had already run away, but they knew how powerful Ling Butterfly was, not to mention the powerful characters at the moment. It seemed that they were not only Ling Butterfly. In case they were affected, Even some of the staff of Caliban slipped away at this moment. Seeing this Essex Company employee snorted coldly, and did not have any intention of negotiating a deal with Caliban again, although he knew that Caliban's energy and power were not small, and it was not as simple as it seemed, and such a disturbance at the moment was extremely unfavorable to his future development. But since the matter had already happened, he simply broke the jar and broke, seeing that Agent Zero directly controlled the Caliban threat, and did not say much, but felt a burst of relief in his heart. But at this moment, he saw that there were actually 4 people sitting not far away. A blonde woman, and 3 small children. One of the teenagers was still a strange blue-skinned man. The faces of the 4 people were all looking at a good show at the moment, especially the Asian black-haired boy was actually looking towards him. The mockery in his eyes was so thick that he saw it, and his head seemed to explode immediately, and boundless anger surged from his heart. Abominable little ghost. Laugh, laugh, laugh. You still laugh. I killed you. Quote. With a roar, the Essex employee picked up a Colt pistol he was carrying with him and shot it at the Asian black-haired boy. Bang. Gunshots rang out. Bullets fly out. The Essex employee imagined the appearance of the black-haired Asian boy lying in a pool of blood, and a sudden burst of change, pleasure, and feeling in his heart. Killing is indeed the best way to release anger. In particular, it was a child who was killed. Only suddenly his eyes widened and he looked at the little boy incredulously. The other party didn't move at all, but several people next to him were startled, and the little boy not only looked like nothing, but still looked at him with that mocking look, and even the ridicule was even stronger. Anger. Although the employees of the Essex Company did not know what was going on, they did not think much, since they were not dead. Then a few more shots. Bang bang. Several bullets flew away. The black-haired Asian boy still didn't have the slightest thing. The employee of the Essex Company gasped, because he saw clearly at this time, the bullet, when it hit the little boy, went straight through, so the other party was safe. This kid is a mutant. Chapter 51. Mutant Imp. The Essex employee immediately understood that the black-haired Asian boy was actually a mutant, and seemed to have the special ability to ignore bullet attacks, and he gritted his teeth and showed indignation. However, this mutant kid with the ability to ignore bullet attacks is an extremely good target to catch. If you catch the company, it will definitely make the company's director like it. Thinking of this, the employee of the Essex Company sneered in his heart, determined to wait a while for the special agent to find a way to catch the Asian imp. And at the moment, he must still kill someone. The suffocation and anger in his heart made him almost crazy, and only murderers can release this anger. Immediately turned his direction and aimed the gun at the little girl next to the Asian imp. Bang! The bullet spun through the air. All this was slow, but in fact, in an instant, the Chin people were still in a state of shock when they saw the Essex employee shooting. Fortunately, the Night Stalker was directly about to use the teleportation ability, and instinctively fled. The witch was stunned for a moment, and her face changed when she saw the employee of the Essex Company shooting at Yu Feng. However, when he saw the scene of the bullet passing through Yu Feng's body, he was stunned again. At this moment, the muzzle of the employee of the Essex Company had been aimed at the piano, and the bullet rolled wildly, and in the moment of 0.01 second, it had already reached the front of the chin. Jean looked at it coldly. Accustomed to the state of assimilation with the plume, the high-speed telepathic mind turns, and at this moment, this bullet, under her telepathic perception, is not so fast. When the eyes looked at this bullet, it was like an invisible ripple of energy swept away. Then, the bullet stopped abruptly in the air. Then there was another uproar. The bullet shattered, turned into fragments, and countless residual particles finally disappeared and dissipated like a puff of black smoke, leaving no trace. Gollum. The Essex employee couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of spit. Hands are shaking. What, is this little girl actually a mutant, who can actually fix the bullet in the air and make the bullet disappear? If this ability is applied to people, this ESSEK employee couldn't help but wonder, what kind of scene would that be? Imaginingly, he couldn't help but take a step back, hesitated slightly, and then pulled the trigger again in disbelief. It's just that the target is not aimed at the piano, but at the weird boy who is all blue. However, before he could shoot, Pong made a sound, but saw the strange boy with all blue suddenly disappeared, and when he appeared the next moment, he was already next to him, and directly kicked him in the stomach. Ah! With a scream, the ESIC employee was directly kicked out. Phew. Good insurance, good insurance. Quote, the Night Stalker looked at the guy with a palpitation. Fortunately he didn't kick on the just now. And the employees of the ESIC company already had tears in their hearts. All these children have changed. State, is it? He was already full of doubt and despair about life, coupled with the suffocation and anger in his heart, and the kick of the Night Walker just now. When he was kicked to the ground, he actually fainted directly like this. Huh, that scene happened too quickly. Agent Zero heard several gunshots, and the employee was directly kicked out and fainted. His face turned gloomy, a gesture of his eyes. Suddenly, several mutant puppet agents, as well as several mercenaries who were not yet dead, surrounded Yufeng and several people. The witch immediately stood up and blocked in front of the children, looking wary. It's just that her heart can't help but feel a little weird. In addition to that flash-like ability to move at high speed, Yu actually has the ability to ignore bullet attacks. And in addition to Yu, that little girl Jean Grey seems to be equally powerful. Compared to these two, although the Night Stalker who can teleport can't help but be a little surprised, the shock is not as great as Yu and Qin. The witch smiled a little bitterly in her heart for a while. She felt that these children didn't seem to need her protection at all. The atmosphere fell eerily silent at this moment. Agent Zero looked at the children with some surprise, especially on the blue-clad boy. His gaze turned around, looking at his pointy ears and demon-like tail, and then remembered the demon in the circus, and suddenly his eyes lit up, as if he realized something. Caliban, are they them we are looking for? These are the few. Agent Zero looked at Caliban. Caliban subconsciously wanted to talk about money, but realizing that he was still at the gunpoint of others, he suddenly changed his tone and said, yes. Quote. Saying that, his eyes kept rolling. He was also very surprised by the performance of Yufeng and the others just now. Especially to Yu Maple. He obviously couldn't sense the mutant aura on the other party, but the other party had just cast a special ability, which made him feel very curious. In his image, the existence that can display different abilities from ordinary people at the moment should be mutant talents. Hearing Caliban's words, Agent Zero's face was completely ugly. The face can see where to go, and after a long day, the person they are looking for is always under their noses. And Caliban, the profiteer, actually wanted to collect so much money from them at the beginning. It was simply unscrupulous to the extreme, and even made this messy situation at the moment. At the beginning, collect the money and say early, where will there be this picture? However, although he was very unhappy in his heart, Agent Zero did not say much. At the very least, for him, although his men were injured, none of them died. And those targets did not escape. Just grab these people and hand them over to the ESIC company, then his task is complete. As for the employee of the ESIC company, whether he was dead or alive, what would happen after offending Caliban, he didn't care. In short, with his status as a free mutant hunter, Caliban's power does not affect him much at all. Besides, there are only eternal interests in this world. There are no eternal enemies, let alone eternal friends. As long as there is money, Caliban will still provide him with information in the future. Thinking of this, Agent Zero said directly, Vertigo, do it. Yes. The guy named Vertigo who had strange markings on his face in the Special Agent Zero squad, hearing Agent Zero's order at this moment, the markings on his face immediately rotated, and at the same time, his eyes flashed with a dusky light. For a moment, the witch only felt that the sky was spinning, her head was dizzy uncontrollably, and her body seemed to fall to the ground in the next moment. The same goes for Night Stalker, Jean, and even Yu Kaide. Oh, does it make people instantly dizzy? Quote. Feeling the dizziness in his mind, Yu Feng's face froze slightly. He originally wanted to play again, but in the current situation, he couldn't play any tricks, so he just solved everything first. There was a faint golden light around him, ready to solve the guy named Vertigo first. After all, this guy's Vertigo ability would have a lot of impact on him. But before he could make a move, suddenly a gust of wind swept up. I saw that Ling Butterfly suddenly moved his hand. A powerful purple glow lit up in her hand, and the Nian power weapon turned into a purple light long whip, rolled directly towards the Vertigo, rolled it up, and then fiercely turned to the side. That Vertigo was suddenly dropped. At the same time, all the Vertigo effects lost their effect, and the vision in front of Yujiran's eyes finally returned to normal. Seeing this, Agent Zero's face changed and he looked sharply at Caliban. Caliban looked like he had nothing to do with me and quickly waved his hand. This is not Caliban's idea, this is Lingdi's own choice. After all, although Lingdi listens to Caliban's words, it is not Caliban's slave. Quote. And Caliban paused, and then said, Special Agent Mr. Zero, Caliban advises you not to go against Lingdi at this time. Lingdi obviously likes those children. Once she doesn't listen to Caliban, her combat effectiveness will be very explosive. Quote. HMPH. Agent Zero is too lazy to talk nonsense with Caliban. Directly raise the gun, that is, shoot towards the spirit butterfly. Agent Zero's bullet this time is obviously different from before. When the bullet is fired, you can faintly see a strange energy constantly rotating around the bullet, which seems to be rubbing and rubbing with the air while absorbing the power of the surrounding kinetic energy potential energy. At the same time, Agent Zero's whole body seems to have energy constantly gathering over, making him full of strength and momentum, and this moment has reached its peak, which makes people unconsciously have a sense of oppression. HMPH. Seeing this, Ling Dai also snorted softly. Deftly dodged the attack of several people, saw Agent Zero shooting towards her, the blade in her hand suddenly swung like a storm, looking like Deadpool in Wolverine. The blade swung so fast that it actually directly cut the bullet from Agent Zero in half. However, the bullet burst at this moment. Ling Dai's brows frowned slightly, but there was not much surprise, and her face was still calm. The body turned dexterously at this moment, and the purple Nian power light blade in his hand suddenly soared, not retreating, but dodging the fragments of the bullet bursting and splashing, and the next moment the spirit butterfly flipped on its side in the air, stabbing the arm of a mutant puppet agent who took the opportunity to sneak up. Quadruple A. That guy's ability is that the arm extends and lengthens. At this moment, he was cut down, and immediately looked like he shrank and withered, and at the same time let out a miserable scream. All these movements are fast, ruthless and elegant. Seeing this, several of Agent Zero's subordinates all looked solemn to the extreme. Agent Zero also had a slightly condensed face. This spirit butterfly, the combat power really seems to be much stronger than before. I didn't expect Ling Butterfly's combat power to be so explosive. Quote. Yu Feng couldn't help but marvel in his heart. Others may not be able to see clearly, but he knows everything that Ling Dai has just made. Ling Di's battle action just now can be said to be like flowing clouds, fast, ruthless and accurate, and all the timing is very good. It is simply beautiful to the extreme, but it is much more powerful than in the movie. Wow! As the figure landed, the spirit butterfly just fell in front of Yu Feng, and immediately raised his eyes and looked at Agent Zero and several mutant subordinates of Special Agent Zero, and a cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. You guys are not allowed to bully these children, especially this little brother. You guys, don't bully these children, especially this little brother. Ling Di's domineering voice sounded, and Yu Feng and Qin who listened couldn't help but be stunned. Especially when he heard the latter sentence, Yu Feng couldn't help but twitch the corners of his mouth, and Qin was small and strange. The Night Walker looked confused and didn't know what happened, but the witch rolled her eyes, and looked at Yu Feng strangely, and then stared at the spirit butterfly in front of her. Her previous impression of this spirit butterfly was nothing more than Caliban's bodyguard, who looked like she was going to kill people at every turn in the evening. But now it seems that this spirit butterfly is also enthusiastic and actually protects the child. In particular, he was actually interested in you. This made the witch feel a little unhappy in her heart, and I have to say that this little guy Yu is quite pleasing to some big sisters and little sisters. Agent Zero and those people have very ugly faces. Ling Dai's words could not scare them, and now they surrounded Ling Butterfly and Yu Feng again. Their bodies were murderous, even the guy who had a broken arm was holding back to his squad and preparing to continue fighting. Agent Zero no longer stared at the Caliban side. He walked towards the spirit butterfly, and it seemed that there was always an invisible energy absorbed by him from around the air, making people feel that his momentum was getting stronger and stronger. Even when the special agent walked out in one step, the ground shook, which shows that its strength has far exceeded the ordinary number of people or even 10 times in this instant, and I don't know what strange ability it is. This agent can absorb the kinetic energy around him, thereby enhancing his physical functions, and can also attach kinetic energy to the weapon to enhance the power of the weapon. Ling Dai suddenly looked at the witch. Witch, this spy is not easy to deal with, are you ready to fight? Quote. Of course. The witch nodded, and as she spoke, her whole body changed, from the original hot girl to the original appearance of the witch. Seeing this, Agent Zero couldn't help but be slightly surprised. Witch. Agent Zero's eyes flickered, and a cold and cruel smile opened at the corner of his mouth. Very good, my luck today is good. General Stryker's side seems to be hiring me to find the witch and arrest it, but it is a no-brainer. Quote. Saying that, he looked at the spirit butterfly again. Spirit butterfly, huh, oh, do you think that just the two of you, and these three mutant little brats, can fight me? It's ridiculous. For Caliban's sake, Ling Di, you'd better get out of the way quickly, or I'll kill you too. Quote. Ha, Ling Di sneered, Agent Zero, mine should be you. I don't know if death is coming, and I am still pretending here. If I were you, I would definitely regret it when the time came. Quote. Ling Di was sharp-tongued, without the slightest fear. At this moment, when sneering and mocking, he suddenly started his hand, and as soon as he moved his hand, he slashed again towards the guy who was cut off an arm, which scared the guy and quickly retreated. Seeing this, Ling Dai had a cold smile at the corner of her mouth. Suddenly he turned around and attacked the guy with the ability to stun. Stun. This ability is the key ability to capture mutants in the Special Agent Zero squad, so it is natural to kill them quickly as soon as possible. However, while this guy has the ability to stun, he also has a lot of self-healing ability that is much better than ordinary people, and his vitality is strong, and his previous injuries have now fully recovered. In view of this, the spirit butterfly attacked the direction of this person, which was the position of this person's head. That dizzy man saw the spirit butterfly attacking, and his face was solemn. Although his self-healing ability is strong, he is only better than ordinary people, and he is not an immortal body. You can still die from extremely severe trauma, let alone the skull area. Immediately retreated. At the same time, his eyes flashed with a dull light, the markings on his face kept rotating, and a burst of vertigo fluctuations suddenly spread. Only at this moment, the witch turned over a few people and suddenly attacked. The whole person was directly kicked out. And it is exactly the direction towards the spirit butterfly. Oops. Vertigo exhaled secretly in his heart. Ling Di glanced at the witch approvingly, and the next moment her face showed murderous intent. But at this moment, several scorching bullets in the air struck with a force of kinetic energy blessing. Agent Zero shot. His target was of course the strongest spirit butterfly, but he also knew that a few bullets were of little use to the spirit butterfly, and the bullets were just to block the spirit butterfly from killing stun. When he shot at this moment, he stepped forward quickly, and an extremely sharp tactical short blade suddenly appeared in his hand like a ghost, striking towards the body of the spirit butterfly. Ling Dai's gaze froze. The figure froze immediately, cutting the bullet with the blade in his hand, and deftly dodged. It's just that at this moment, Agent Zero actually stopped attacking from a long distance, but came in close combat, and a tactical short blade in his hand carried the momentum of thunder and thunder in the blink of an eye. The purple energy in Ling Di's hand immediately soared, and a mental light blade resisted Agent Zero's short blade. Boom. Fire splatter. If it is an ordinary short blade, it is naturally not comparable to the spirit butterfly's mental weapon. After being slashed by the Nian power weapon, basically most of the ordinary blades must be scrapped. However, at the moment when Agent Zero's tactical short blade collided with the spirit butterfly, a strange energy suddenly spread out on it, as if this tactical short blade was absorbing the surrounding energy, and an invisible energy fluctuation lingered on the surface. Wow! This energy spread violently. Coupled with the soaring power of Special Agent Zero at this moment, it actually made Ling Butterfly slightly invincible in an instant. Her eyes froze, and the next moment her body suddenly retreated, and she did not fight with the Special Agent again. Oh, Yu Feng looked at this scene, and his heart couldn't help but move. So this Agent Zero's mutant ability is to use kinetic energy blessings to strengthen his strength and weapon power. Why does this ability look a bit like domineering? Thinking about it, Yu Feng's complexion became slightly strange. Agent Zero's means are indeed a bit similar to domineering, or to be precise, domineering with armed colors. Of course, the principle is very different from the armed color domineering. Armed color domineering is a force that belongs to itself. The means of Agent Zero is to absorb the surrounding kinetic energy to strengthen the body and weapons. One is a force derived from within, and the other is an addition that draws on external forces. However, the two are similar. At this moment, Agent Zero saw Ling Di retreat. He sneered, and continued to attack unrelentingly, while the witch woman was grappling with several Special Agent Zero's subordinates, and the battle scene was fierce for a while. Shall we help? Qin Xiao's face turned to look at Xiang Yufeng. With her and Yu's ability, she could naturally solve the situation in front of her very easily. No matter how strong Agent Zero's squad is, in front of the two of them, it is just like a chicken and a dog. However, Yu Feng shook his head. Because at this moment, he suddenly had a very interesting idea. Jean, wait a minute, I think we may not need to make a move. The two of Light Spirit Butterfly and the Witch Woman can solve this Special Agent Zero squad. Yu Kaide said. Oh, Jean looked at Yu Feng curiously. Although she doesn't like to fight very much, fighting and killing, she can still see how the battle situation is in front of her. During this year, Hank will also consciously or unintentionally teach some information and knowledge about combat, not to mention that he has heard so many stories about Summoner Canyon on weekdays, and where will he be unfamiliar with such things as fighting? From the current point of view, if she and Yu and the Night Stalker did not participate in the battle, the Witch and the Spirit Butterfly would be 100% defeated. It is not only a problem of the large number of Special Agent Zero squads, but also because the Spirit Butterfly, which originally belonged to the offensive and powerful combat power, has been faintly suppressed by Special Agent Zero. Defeat is almost a foregone conclusion. But Yu Feng smiled slightly at this time. A strange light flashed in his eyes, and he stepped out of the room and suddenly disappeared. Then he had already appeared next to Ling Butterfly. Sonorous, Ling Di collided with Agent Zero's tactical short blade, and with sparks splashing out, the powerful force made her retreat again. But just as she stepped back, her face changed. Little brother, why are you here? Quote. Ling Di was surprised and anxious, and the moment she saw Yu Feng, she subconsciously prepared to pick up Yu Feng, and then take Yu Feng to quickly leave the battlefield to avoid danger. But at this moment, Yu Feng's body was slightly. At the same time, the palm stretched out and held the sword blade in Ling Di's hand. This scene made Ling Di's face change again. Her blade is so good that it can be touched casually. Don't say it's a hand, even if it's iron, it will be cut off a piece. Seeing that Yu Feng actually grabbed her sword blade with his hand, Ling Di's body jerked down, for fear that he would cut off Yu Feng's entire hand with a slight movement. At the same time, Shu frowned, and said to Yu Feng with a little annoyance. Little brother, what are you doing? Do you know that this is dangerous? Quote. Don't make trouble. Yu Feng said this suddenly. What? Ling Di was stunned for a while. Where did he know that although this little boy didn't talk much, he was quite domineering? This made her cry and laugh a little. But now Special Agent Zero is about to attack strongly. She is grabbed with a weapon like this, and she also has to worry about hurting Yu Feng, and her combat power may be contained by 80%. Just when he didn't know what to do next, he saw Yu Feng suddenly said. Ling Di, calm down, let me give you domineering. Oh, yes, quote. Ling Di opened her mouth and was stunned again, not quite understanding what Yu Feng said. Domineering. What is that thing? However, although she was extremely puzzled and anxious in her heart, she found that the palm of the little boy in front of her grabbed her sword blade, and there was not the slightest damage at all. This made Ling Di's eyes widen and reveal surprise. She found that there seemed to be a strange metallic black spread on that hand, and it was the metallic black that isolated her sword blade. At the same time, the black seemed to be contagious, causing her blade to spread black. In the end, the entire blade turned into a strange metallic black. Faintly, there was also a black flame-like energy swirling up, causing the purple light power weapon in her other hand to suddenly surge in energy, and the dark purple energy burned like a phoenix fire. This, Ling Di's face showed an incredible look. She looked at Yu Feng in amazement. But seeing that Yu Feng had disappeared at this time, only a voice still swirled in the air and entered her ears. Make good use of the domineering power I have given you. Agent 01 frowned, because just now, he saw the black-haired Asian boy next to Ling Di, capturing one of the targets. He was wondering if he wanted to take the child hostage, but in the blink of an eye, the other party disappeared again. This made him wonder in his heart, and even thought that he was hallucinating. However, seeing that the spirit butterfly at this moment seemed to be a little stunned, he suppressed the doubts in his heart again, because this was a great opportunity to attack. Immediately attacked without the slightest hesitation. Ah! The short blade in his hand burst out with a sharp edge, and slashed towards the neck of the spirit butterfly. But in this instant, boom! Suddenly, the purple Nian power light blade weapon in Ling Dai's hand, which was originally the size of a normal sword, suddenly skyrocketed in energy. Like a dark purple flame sweeping across the sky. The powerful energy burst caused the zero body of the special agent to be directly blasted out, slammed into the wall, and immediately the rubble flew, and the entire room seemed to be shaken. Yu Feng, who returned to his place, couldn't help but glance at Ling Dai's iconic mental weapon in amazement. Cultivating deep armed color domineering can be wrapped around a weapon for a long time without spreading. Yu Feng just gave the spirit butterfly Black Phoenix armed color domineering. Want to see this domineering, and the Special Agent Zero's kinetic energy blessing ability collide, which is better than the worse. However, he didn't expect that his Black Phoenix armament was domineering, and it seemed that it also had a special effect on the spirit butterfly's mental power weapon. Interesting. Seeing this scene, Yu Feng touched his chin and showed an interested look. It seems that the role of his Black Phoenix armed color domineering is not only to enhance the power of ordinary weapons, but also to combine with the specific abilities of some mutants. It was a little unexpected. Especially the ability of mental weapons like Ling Di. At this moment, after combining with the Black Phoenix armed color domineering, the power that erupted, even he couldn't help but be a little frightened. Ling Di's eyes shone brightly as she watched the change in her weapon. Especially seeing the scene where Agent Zero was directly shocked out, his face suddenly became wonderful. What a powerful power! Is this what the little boy called Yu said domineering? Ling Dai knew that Yu was a little unusual, but he never expected that it was not ordinary to this extent. That strange speed that comes and goes without a trace, the special physique that bullets can't hit, and the strange domineering ability like the current one. All this shocked and incredible to her. I couldn't help but be more interested in Yu. Of course, at present, it is necessary to completely solve the problem of Special Agent Zero and others. Thinking of this, the sharp blade with metallic black in Ling Di's hand waved, and the invisible sword she rolled up, accompanied by the flame-like dark purple Nian power light blade weapon exuding the power of the tyrant, and slammed towards the people of the Zero Squad of the Special Agent who besieged the witch. The people of the Special Agent Zero Squad originally wanted to quickly solve the witch and catch the children. Once the child is caught, then whether it is the witch or the spirit butterfly, they must obediently tie their hands and capture. But where did they think that their boss didn't have much time? He was directly blasted out by the spirit butterfly, and the spirit butterfly still looked like a powerful storm at the moment, and at a glance, he knew that it was extremely difficult to mess with, and they couldn't help but subconsciously retreat. But soon everyone gritted their teeth and stepped forward again. Because they saw that Agent Zero had stood up in the rubble at this moment, although he looked embarrassed, he did not lose his combat effectiveness. "Kill this fool," Agent Zero said viciously. Without saying a word, the gun in his hand shot madly towards the spirit butterfly. At the same time, his body quickly rushed towards Ling Butterfly like an afterimage, and with the help of his squad, he quickly solved Ling Butterfly completely. HMPH. Just at this moment, a contemptuous smile. The pitch-black metal-colored blade in her hand danced like a storm, and those bullets with enhanced kinetic energy were not only cut to the extent that they were now cut, but also directly shattered under the pitch-black blade, turning into residue, and there were no fragments left. Seeing this, the special agent was stunned. Ling Di's eyes are brighter. She can already feel that her sword blade is not only more powerful at this moment, but also has a seemingly indestructible strong defensive attribute, and with her sword art, the combat power that can be exerted is simply increasing geometrically. What's more, the increase in power she received was not only this sword blade and her mental weapon. After all the bullets were extinguished, the dark purple bright light almost illuminated the entire room. The next moment, a purple glow flashed in the eyes of everyone in the Special Agent Zero Squad. Wow, it was like a storm of blades sweeping through. In the blink of an eye, then, everyone in the Special Agent Zero Squad let out a miserable scream, covered their necks and opened their eyes, showing an unbelievable look, and then fell to the ground and died. Even Agent Zero is no exception. He stared at Ling Butterfly deadly, and the incredulity in his eyes was extremely rich. He couldn't imagine that the spirit butterfly at this moment they actually killed everyone in their Special Agent Zero squad in an instant. Why, Spirit Butterfly, is it really so strong? He is not willing, but it is useless to be unwilling. Soon Agent Zero also fell on his knees, completely fell, and died without a blind eye. Ling Di, on the other hand, breathed a long sigh of relief, put away the sword blade in his hand and the purple mental weapon, and the figure landed when the Special Agent Zero squad was destroyed. How fast and how dashing. It's gorgeous. Jean, Night Stalker, and Witch looked at the scene in front of them in amazement, and they were already stunned. Especially the Night Walker, instantly revealed the appearance of a lost brother, and his eyes lit up when he looked at the Spirit Butterfly. Jean has some little oddities on her small face. She looked at Yu Feng. Did you do this? Quote. Yu Feng smiled and said nothing. The most surprising and incredible was Caliban present. He was stunned to look at the Spirit Butterfly who had killed several members of the Special Agent Zero squad at once, and was stunned. Ling Di's ability could not be clearer to him. Although it was strong, there was not much chance of winning against a few spies, let alone killing the other party's group in seconds. But right now, Caliban swallowed a mouthful of spit, and couldn't help but muttered in a low voice, "It seems that Caliban will treat the Spirit Butterfly better in the future." Ling Di couldn't help but smile when she saw that everyone was focusing their eyes on her, but her smile was not to everyone, but to Yu Feng, who had been standing quietly in place. Following, he raised his footsteps and walked towards Yu Feng. "Little brother, your name is Yu, right?" Ling Di put the blade into the scabbard, walked gracefully, looked at Yu Feng with shining eyes, and smiled. "Sister likes you, and you're domineering. In the future, if we have the opportunity, we may as well cooperate more." Quote. Saying that, he couldn't help but kiss Yu Feng's little face. This is a shame. Yu Feng couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Where did he think that Ling Di actually kissed him in front of the public? "Hey, isn't it okay not to bring this, I don't want face?" Chin instantly made a small face, and looked at Ling Di unhappily. The Night Stalker instantly looked at Yu dumbfounded, looking extremely envious. As for the witch, she looked strange, and at the same time couldn't help but be a little funny. Looking at Yu's embarrassed little face, she suddenly remembered the scene when she first met Yu. Yu Feng looked at Ling Butterfly speechlessly. However, hearing Ling Di's words of more cooperation and cooperation, he couldn't help but move in his heart. Immediately rolled his eyes, and then said, "Of course, we must cooperate and cooperate in the future. In fact, I am here today to cooperate with you." "Oh," Ling Di immediately glanced at Yu Feng interestingly. "What do you want to work with?" Quote. "Caliban is a pleasure to work with you." At this time, Caliban suddenly came over. Since there is business to do now, then he naturally will not miss it, and at the same time said to Yu Feng with the appearance of a profiteer, "But now it's time for Caliban to close, and because of you, Caliban's house has been damaged a lot." Boom. As he spoke, a sudden sound of a sword blade coming out of its sheath sounded, and Ling Di looked at Caliban coldly. Ahem. Caliban suddenly coughed dryly. "That, of course, since Ling Di likes you so much, Caliban naturally likes you very much, so the matter of the house is settled. But if you want to cooperate, you must first pay a deposit." Boom. Aha. Caliban coughed dryly again. "Of course, Caliban likes you so much, so the deposit is definitely not needed. I don't know what little brother wants to cooperate with us." Yu Feng looked at Caliban's pained and tangled appearance, and couldn't help it. After a pause, he said slowly, "I hope that Caliban can help me collect more information about special substances." Quote. Special substances. Caliban couldn't help but wonder. Jean, Night Stalker, Witch, and Spirit Butterfly also looked at Yu Feng curiously. They didn't expect Yu Feng to propose such a cooperation project. Looking for information about special substances. What are special substances? Yu Feng knew that just talking about special substances, Caliban would naturally be puzzled, so he continued to say in detail. "The special substances I am referring to are those that are not common and contain special effects and effects, such as some genetic serum drugs with strange effects, some substances containing special energy, or some things that make people wonder what use they have never appeared on Earth, and so on. Mysterious matter has a physical form, a nihilistic form, and a parasitic form. There will also be a combination between these three forms, such as Chin's Black Phoenix personality power, which is a mysterious substance that belongs to the form of nothingness plus parasitism. The information about the mysterious substance that Caliban is looking for, the void and the state of parasitism, are very difficult to find. And he couldn't explain to Caliban for a while what the mysterious substance of the void and parasitic state was. After all, he couldn't give an example of Jean's Black Phoenix personality. Therefore, what Yu Feng wanted to let Caliban focus on was the mysterious substance in the physical state. With Caliban's intelligence network, although it is unlikely that each of the special substances found will meet the needs of the mysterious substance, it can always provide Yu Feng with a lot of clues. So it is. Caliban understood. This kind of thing is actually very simple for him. You only need to pay attention to things about unusual special substances, and you are not looking for someone or anything. You can leave it to his hands to do it slowly and constantly collect information. Caliban is mainly entangled in the question of money. Since it is a business, it cannot be lost. But looking at Ling Dai's appearance, he couldn't say it directly, so he could only look at Yu Feng. Yu Feng is a very conscientious person. Therefore, when he saw the appearance of Caliban looking at him, he immediately smiled and took out something from his body. This is my contact information. Save you when the time comes to find the information. You have to spend effort to find my people again. Oh yes, thank you for cooperating with me for free. I will remember your good, Caliban. Taking the contact information handed over by Yu Feng, Caliban opened his mouth, a little wanting to cry without tears. Especially when he heard the second half of Yu Feng's words, the whole person was suddenly not good. When did he say he wanted to cooperate for free? What a nice guy Caliban is. Yu Feng sighed again. Free cooperation does not charge money. I will definitely cooperate with you and Caliban in the future, and take care of your business. Quote. Caliban was about to vomit blood. Come back anytime. Ling Dai blinked her eyes and smiled. She was very curious about the kind of domineering that Yu Feng gave her, but she wished that Yu would come more in the future. After talking to Caliban and Ling Di about finding the mysterious substance, Yu Feng and the others began to leave. The witch heard that Yu Feng was interested in some unusual special substances, and immediately thought of helping Yu Feng. After all, she has been traveling around the world for many years, and often hears some strange things. Maybe she can help Yu Feng. Yu Feng was naturally happy about this. Soon the witch was also separated from everyone. Yu Kaide, on the other hand, went back to the mutant school with Jean and Nightwalker. With Yu Feng's current degree of control over light particles, it is more than enough to carry two people to move at the speed of light together. According to Yu Feng's own estimates, his current limit is that he can carry 5 or 6 people at the same time to move at the speed of light. Of course, the consumption of physical strength will naturally increase by geometric multiples. With the flash of light in the 8 mirrors, in the blink of an eye, the 3 returned to Xavier's Genius Youth School. Wow! The Night Walker only felt that his eyes lit up, and the next moment he came to a building full of British style, and his face was full of surprise. He looked at Yu Feng and couldn't help but praise. You, this is really cool. By the way, Nightcrawler, how far do you control your abilities now? Yu Feng looked at the Night Stalker, but suddenly asked, for example, how far is the teleportation distance, how many times can teleportation be performed in a row, and how many people can be carried to move? Quote. The Night Stalker thought for a moment. The distance is as long as it is the place I have seen or the place I can see, but if I go to those farther away, I may have to teleport a few more times. As for how many times a performance is carried out, at a distance, it is about a dozen times, and at close range, it can be more than 30 times. Then you have to recover your strength. Quote. So, Yu Feng thought thoughtfully. What are you asking this for? The Night Stalker couldn't help but be a little curious. Qin Zi's eyes flashed and looked at Yu Feng. Do you want to test your photon assimilation and mutual feeding ability? Quote. Yu Feng looked at Qin with some surprise, thinking that this little Nizi still knew his mind quite well. That's right. Feather Kaide is ready to test whether his light can feed each other with the ability of the Night Stalker, and what is the effect of the mutual feeding effect. The situation of the spirit butterfly before made some special thoughts. In fact, when his Black Phoenix armed color domineering and unexpectedly increased the power of the spirit butterfly mind power weapon, Yu Feng could clearly feel the energy in that spirit power weapon, which seemed to have some impact on his Black Phoenix armed color domineering. His Black Phoenix was armed with domineering, and it seemed that there was some special combination between it and the light particles. In this way, he can arm the Black Phoenix with domineering color and attach it to the light particles, making the state of the light particles more indestructible and powerful. This made Yu Feng faintly have some special ideas. Photon assimilation allows him to draw more of the power of the Phoenix hidden in the piano, and the two feed each other and strengthen each other. The Black Phoenix armed color domineering allows him to absorb the energy in the Spirit Butterfly mind weapon while strengthening the Spirit Butterfly, causing his ability to change as well. It seems that his ability, whether it is photon assimilation or Black Phoenix armed color domineering, can carry out some special mutual feeding effects with specific mutants. Hidden in his data-based genes absorb mysterious substances and thus enhance their abilities are somewhat similar. It's just that the effect of the former is some small impact change, more like a subtle improvement. The latter, on the other hand, will have some essential evolutionary effects on Yu Feng's ability. For Jean, only photon assimilation will have a mutual feeding effect with her, and the Black Phoenix armed color domineering will not have any effect. For Lingdi, photon assimilation has not been tried, I don't know, but armed color domineering is useful. And as for the Night Stalkers, when the photon assimilation teleported just now, it seemed that the light particles on my body reacted slightly, and I don't know if the Black Phoenix armed color domineering also reacted. Yu Feng thought, his hand touching the Night Stalker. The Night Walker immediately felt the light in front of him light up, and instantly entered the photon assimilation state. This feeling, that's great. Quote, the Night Stalker looked at Yu Feng very excitedly. In fact, I just wanted to tell you, once I enter this state, I feel that I can instantly transfer to any corner of the world I want to go to. And disposable. Quote. When Yu Feng heard this, the corners of his mouth curled. You might as well try your ability now, and then go to any corner of the world you want to go. Ah, really want to try? Quote. The Night Stalker hesitated slightly when he heard this, but seeing Yu Feng's eyes, he immediately nodded, okay, then I'll try it. Quote. Ponto. In an instant, Nightwalker and Feather Feng disappeared. Seeing this, Qin waited quietly, and after about 30 seconds, with the sound of "Pon," Night Stalker and Yu Feng appeared in place again. How? Jean asked. Good, great, the Night Stalker said excitedly. I never imagined that my ability could reach this level. Just now we went to Asia, Africa, Europe, Australia and even the North and South Poles. Oh, my God, that felt amazing. If I could, I even feel like I could run to outer space, to the moon. Gee, I had plans to go to the moon a long time ago. The Night Stalker relished and was excited, as if he saw the door to open a new world. Yu Feng showed a thoughtful face. Feather. Jean looked at Yu Feng. How do you feel? Quote. It's kind of weird. Yu Feng frowned slightly. When the Night Stalker teleported just now, I felt that my light particles seemed to have a strange feeling that penetrated into another space. Quote. Oh, Qin Shu's eyebrows moved. In fact, when you exceed the speed of light, time and space will be distorted, and you will break through the barriers of time and space and enter some special dimensions. Quote. For example, parallel worlds, such as the current Earth like Earth 2, Earth 3, or the future past, or even the different space-time dimensions in the universe, and so on. It's just that this hasn't happened to you all this time, maybe it's due to the special nature of your ability. Qin said with a thoughtful look, but now, some of the nature of your abilities has changed, or more accurately, some perfections, so perfect that they can already affect time and space. Quote. Maybe so. Yu Kaide thought the same. Every mutual feeding effect, even the absorption of mysterious substances, is actually the evolution and improvement of his ability. The reason why his speed of light could not affect time and space before was probably because his ability was not perfect enough. But now it has gradually begun to develop in the direction of perfection. Just thinking about it, suddenly Yu Feng's eyes moved. The light particles around him suddenly became active, but it was an abnormal activity. At the same time, Yu Feng's eyes froze, feeling that the surrounding scene was covered by a rich black energy, and even his light particles were vaguely dyed with a strange black, turning into black. This alien dimension of space-time. Quote. Yu Feng knew that in this Marvel world, there were also various different time and space dimensions, and the demon gods in the universe. For example, in Doctor Strange, the enemies of the supreme mages on Earth, and even the source of magical power for some mages, Dormammu. And the dimension in which it exists, black. Right now, the darkness that suddenly appeared in front of him, darker than the night, suddenly thought of the dark dimension. But this darkness comes and goes quickly. Soon Yu Feng's front cleared and returned to normal. It's just that some of the light particles around him are completely dyed with darkness and turned into black. The black light particles in this part appear very conspicuous in the golden glow. Jean and Nightwalker both watched the scene in amazement. Jean seemed to have guessed something. Just now you entered a different space-time dimension. Quote. Yu Feng nodded, it's a dark dimension, and my light particles seem to be affected by the power in that dimension, or more accurately, is combined. Quote. This penetrated into the other dimension, resulting in transformed black light particles, which made Yu Feng feel a different feeling in his heart. Deep, mysterious, yet powerful. It's a wonderful energy. Even in the moment just now, he could feel that his database genes were activated to absorb the mysterious substance. That energy must be a kind of mysterious substance. It's a pity that just now I entered that suspected dark and unique other dimensional space-time. The time was too short, so short that it didn't have time to absorb it, which made Yu Feng couldn't help but sigh secretly. Then he experimented several times in succession. But he could no longer enter that other dimensional space-time, which made Yu Feng couldn't help but be a little disappointed. But although it is a little disappointing, it is not without surprises. His light particles that penetrate into different dimensions and are transformed into black light, although they do not seem to be as active as ordinary light particles, they are deeper, thicker, and more powerful. For example, when this black light particle is used to cast laser light, it is secretive and silent, but whether it is penetrating power or explosive power, it is 3 times stronger. He even found that using the Black Phoenix to arm the color Domineering could more easily combine with this black light particle, thus deriving a black one like the heavenly lock after the death and the swastika after the moon. With a slash, you can even perform a trick similar to the crescent moon. This made Yu Feng couldn't help but be very surprised. Of course, not without its shortcomings. Yu Feng tried to use the state of the black light particles to cast the speed of light, but found that the speed was 10 times slower than usual. It seems that after this light particle has become blackened and thickened, although the power function has been strengthened, the effect on his movement speed has been weakened, and it is not a little bit. Many of the power tests just now were naturally completed in the training room in the base. As for Jean and Nightstalker, they have already gone to rest. Yu Feng wiped his sweat and walked out of the training room, looking slightly tired. In any case, the harvest this evening is very huge, and then it is only necessary to continue experimental training and improve the various ways to use the ability. If you want to open that other dimension again, perhaps, you have to find the next mysterious substance. One night without a word. When the light of dawn shone on the earth, Yu Feng had already got up and walked to the library, doing the lightspeed memory training that he usually did all the time. After training for a year, Yu Feng's mental power has now become extremely strong, and he can continuously think at the speed of light for a long time, which can be of great benefit to both engineering inventions and biological genetic research. The only problem was that he had read almost all the books in the library almost 1,000 times. The memory is so deep that when you touch it almost with your eyes closed, you can know which book and which page, which makes Yu Feng can't help but feel a slight pain. X and Hank have purchased a large number of new books to come in, but they still can't feed Yu Feng's amazing reading ability. It seems that I have to train my light speed thinking ability in a different way. Reading books can no longer satisfy me, but to carry out some invention and genetic research practical projects can exercise my brain mental strength more effectively. It's a pity that although Hank is the top smart person in the Marvel world, he is always just one person. There are too few projects that can be studied by one person. Blackbird Fighter, Sentinel Robot Transformation Project, Dangerous Training Room Planning and Manufacturing, X because of research, this is pretty much the core project Hank is working on today. It's not that Yu Feng is not specialized, greedy and chewy. It's that some technical problems can't be solved by thinking fast. Genius is 99% sweat plus that 1% inspiration. Inspiration is very important and very subtle. Fast not necessarily inspiration. On the contrary, sometimes thinking too long and too quickly on a problem is easy to drill into the horns, the gains outweigh the losses, and the time is wasted. What's more, Yu Feng is still in the learning stage, and he needs to contact more practical projects to constantly touch the bypass, enrich his experience in various research projects, which is the maximum use of his light-speed thinking ability. After all, for others, researching multiple projects at the same time is an act of greedy and chewy, but for Yu Feng, it is not. It's just a pity. Hank was always just a man after all. He does not have a professional scientific research team, or even a research company, and although the projects that he can personally research are extremely profound and high-tech, they are still too few for Yu Feng. By the way, maybe when can I try to enter Stark Industries? Suddenly, Yu Feng's eyes flashed. A research project in Stark Industries. Howard Stark is a man no less intelligent than Hank. Moreover, going to Stark Industries, you may be able to discover more secret substances, especially the existence of the cosmic cube. That's right. He remembered that Howard Stark had always worked with the original Ant-Man Dr. Pym, right? The Pym particle of the original Ant-Man Dr. Pym, I don't know if it is a mysterious substance. Yu Feng thought while opening a thick book in his hand. In any case, let's read through the books in this library again this morning. Phew. Coming out of the library and stretching, Yu Feng was ready to go to the underground base to continue his research and training. In particular, he wanted to train more on the use and skills of the black light particles. He just got that kind of power yesterday, so naturally he should pay more attention to it and strive to explore more uses. At the same time, he also needs to use the instrument developed by Hank to study the detailed nature of this black light particle, and it is best to trace the other dimensional space-time that appeared yesterday night. Jean followed him, and as always, he came to the library after half an hour, inseparable from him. As for the Night Stalker, that guy is probably still sleeping. This book says some things about acupuncture points in the human body, can you help me? At this moment, the piano player was holding a book on Chinese medicine, discussing the above content with Yu Feng. But at this moment, her eyes lifted. It seems that Professor Charles has returned. Quote, "Oh, are you back?" Yu Feng also raised his eyes and looked outside the school. However, this look, but couldn't help frowning slightly, and saw a large number of students screaming and watching over, looking excited. This made Yu Feng and Chin Face look at each other. What the heck? It seems that a luxury car has come to the school. Jean paused, and then said with some surprise, and it's even more trench than the professor's car. Quote, "Oh." Between the two of them, they saw that the car mentioned in the mouth of the piano that was more trench than the gun carriage given by X drove into the school, and at this sight, Yu Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. In today's 70s, although there will not be some sports cars like the Lamborghini of the previous life, basically all sports car styles look very retro. But vintage has retro classics. The sports car that appeared in front of Yu Feng was a noble champagne golden luster throughout, with beautiful lines, like a graceful classical literary lady, but some of the special external structures showed a very unusual manufacturing technique. This is a high-tech modified car. Even with the amount of knowledge that Yu Feng has in reading 10,000 volumes, it can be seen that this high-tech modified car should have a special anti-gravity device. Once turned on, it can make the whole car levitate and fly and move. Of course, this is just his guess. After all, in the current environment of the 70s of the 20th century, the emergence of a super-futuristic technology car that can fly in levitation is really amazing. However, I remember that Howard Stark studied anti-gravity levitation on cars as early as World War II. Yu Feng couldn't help but think in his heart, could it be that this car is from Stark Industries? Quote, at this moment, the super luxury car stopped. A very gentlemanly and polite middle-aged man with slightly gray hair walked down from the luxury car. He smiled and nodded to the curious mutant children, followed to the other car doors, and opened the car doors. Mr. Stark, Professor Charles, and Mr. Hank, school has arrived. Hard work on you, Jarvis. Sitting in the passenger seat was a middle-aged and elderly man with slightly gray hair. He is the owner of Stark Industries today, a super arms dealer, inventor, and a core member of the Strategic Science Corps, the predecessor of S.H.I.E.L.D. Howard Stark. Howard smiled at Professor X in the back seat and said, Professor Charles, I have to say that your school is really vibrant, and it would be a great honor for me to attend this school when I was young. Shu nodded and smiled. I started this school not only to teach mutant children to use their abilities, but also to enable mutants and ordinary humans to live in peace from an early age. So in the days to come, the school will not only enroll children with mutant talents, but also those children of ordinary people. Quote, yes, everything has to start with dolls, and it is indeed a good idea to have ordinary children go to school with mutant children. Howard nodded slightly, indicating his agreement with Professor X's idea. At this time, Hank had already taken out the wheelchair from the back of the car, put it away, and said, Professor, you can come down. Trouble you, Hank. Yu Feng and Chin looked in the direction of the luxury car from a distance, and when they saw the two middle-aged and elderly men who got out of the car, one was full of politeness and gentlemanhood, and the other was showing the temperament of a person in power, Yu Feng's eyes couldn't help but move slightly. That's supposed to be Howard Stark and his butler Jarvis, right? Jarvis Yu Feng didn't have much impression, and he couldn't hear his voice from a distance. But Howard's classic image of a mustache, he remembered. Although Howard's beard has turned slightly gray at this moment, and the person is much thinner, it seems that he is no longer the grace of his youth, but the person has a mature and stable temperament. By the way, I wonder if Tony Stark's goods are born now. Yu Feng couldn't help but think strangely. Howard's goods look like an old man. In the original plot of the film and television, when Tony was still a teenager in his 20s, Howard was already old and gray-haired, which made Yu Feng can't help but suspect that Howard at this moment may not have given birth to the future Iron Man Tony Stark. After glancing a few times, he saw that Shu Feng was walking in the direction of Howard with Howard. Yu Feng looked thoughtful, and followed, and Chin still walking towards the direction of the base. Howard Stark comes to the mutant school. It is clear. It was the collaboration between X and Howard. X-General has always been committed to the matter of mutants living in peace with humans, and this is something that Howard Stark, who is the core manager of the SSR's Slightly Science Corps, will naturally notice. After all, this organization is the predecessor of S.H.I.E.L.D., and the fields involved in itself include military, political, espionage, intelligence, scientific research, and supernatural events, and so on in various fields. Now that mutants are gradually known to the world, they will naturally attract SSR. Win-win cooperation with X is a normal thing. It's just that Yu Feng is curious that the two sides don't know how they will cooperate. X wants peace between humans and mutants. What does that Howard guy want? Inside the office of X Grant, Howard tasted a cup of clear tea in his hand, and the aroma of tea flowed between his lips and teeth with the heat, making Howard's eyes light up slightly, and praised. I didn't expect that, Professor Charles, on your side, there would actually be tea from that mysterious country in the east, Washa. I thought, Professor, you only drink coffee. This tea was given to me by one of my students. If Mr. Howard likes it, you might as well bring some back. X said with a smile. Oh, is it? Then I'm welcome. Quote. Howard smiled too, placed the teacup on the table, and waved at Jarvis. Jarvis handed over a contract. Professor Charles, before visiting the school, I think we should explain some things first. Howard said half-jokingly, of course, if Professor Charles is willing to use telepathy to directly read the thoughts in my mind, maybe I will save even a lot of effort. Quote. Don't worry, Mr. Howard, I won't do anything so presumptuous. Professor X picked up the contract, looked at it, and smiled. Actually, Mr. Howard, if you are still in good health, I think we can go have a drink and talk about things. I have a treasured collection of good wine here, so I don't have to make the atmosphere between us so serious. Well. Quote. As he spoke, a smile froze on X's face. He frowned slightly and glanced at Howard. But seeing Howard's faint smile, he didn't say anything more. X couldn't help but look down at the contract again. Hank on the side couldn't help but frown when he saw X's appearance. In his opinion, although this Howard Stark seemed to come to talk with them with kindness. But he knew that Stark Industries was essentially a mercenary arms dealer. I am afraid that it will not be possible to negotiate cooperation with arms. But Charles's guy insisted on trying it, and he couldn't help it, and seeing Charles's frowning look at the moment, he immediately knew that there might be something bad on the contract. It was only at this time that Professor X put down the contract in his hand. The brow gradually stretched. His face became a little strange. He looked at Howard with some uncertainty, and then asked, Mr. Howard, are you sure, do you want to invest in the construction of our school for free without charging a single return? Quote, I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.